Hello, everybody. This is Ian Rosario, second period honors biology, and this is my sourdough bread experiment. So, after getting my starter from Mr. Clapp, I put it into the bowl I would be using, and then I scooped out 1 cup of flour, and then I put it into my bowl. Next, I measured out about 2 1/3 cup of water, and then I also put that into my bowl of the starter and the flour. After that, I took my weird wooden spoon thing and I started incorporating my flour and my water into my starter until it got into a nice consistency where everything was fully combined and there were no more dry spots. After struggling to cover my saran wrap, I then covered my starter with it. And I made sure that it was sealed tight so the air would stay inside and it would allow the starter to rise. So this is what it looked like after 8 hours of sitting, and then this was what it looked like after 12 hours. It got more bubbly and it rose a little bit. I took the saran wrap off and then I measured out another cup of flour and I put that into the starter. Then again, I measured out about 2 1/3 cup of water and then I also put that into the starter. And then I got my weird spoon again and started stirring and incorporating everything for a second time until everything was all incorporated together and no more dry spots were left. Then I covered it up again and waited another 8 to 12 hours. After 12 hours, it looked like this. It got a little bit more bubblier and did rise. And then I took off the saran wrap once again. And then I scooped out about 1 cup of the starter and left it on the side to be used for something else. And then I scooped up another 1 cup of flour and then added it into the starter. And then again measured out about 2 1/3 cup of water and then put that into the bowl as well. And then again stirring it until everything's nice and incorporated together. And I covered it in plastic wrap again and waited another 8 to 12 hours. And this 8 to 12 hours was actually really cool because here, after 8 hours, it rose up by a lot and I could really tell the difference. But then after 12 hours, it then looked like this, filled to the top at the brim. And I could really tell how much yeast could do to bread and how much it could rise with the release of CO2 through alcohol fermentation. So this process went on for a long time, taking out some of the dough and then putting back in flour and water until we had a Zoom with Mr. Clapp. So for Mr. Clapp's Zoom, we needed a mixing bowl, our wooden spoon, some salt and some flour and water. And so here, with the salt incorporated with the water, I added in my starter after taking away 1/3 of it and placing it into the bowl and started to stir it. Then I started to whisk it in, get it really incorporated into the salt water. After really incorporating the starter into the salt water, I started to gradually add in some of the flour, going half a cup at a time. And I did that until it got into a really nice consistency where I was able to start kneading it. So this was the part of me kneading it. It was a really weird experience, but it was really fun too. It took some time to get used to kneading the dough as it was kind of sticky as it came out of the bowl, but the flour on the tabletop really helped, and I started getting into a good groove of kneading the dough.
Why is that so loud? Oh!
Hey bro,
Wait, can it see me?
Square up, bro.
Veg.
Kuya, kinukuha niyo yung mga ano. Is this enough?
No, some of it.
Thank you. So after kneading my dough, I oiled up a bowl and placed my dough in there with plastic wrap over it, and the next day it had risen up by a lot. Then I put it in another bowl where I put a wet towel over it and put it in the fridge. So then I took my bowl out of the fridge as it was time for another Zoom class, preheated of my oven to 375 degrees, and got some materials ready.
Kalaki yung 3-inch.
So with my egg wash, I went ahead and brushed the top of my dough.
Can I measure ko? Bro, it looks like it's gonna pop.
Mine looks like it's gonna pop. Mine doesn't even look like a circle. Dude, you need to be precise.
Hindi kailangan ni Cedric ng video.
Okay, that's good.
Okay na.
And then into the oven it went for 45 minutes. So after 45 minutes, I heard the oven beeping and it was time to take the bread out of the oven. So this experiment was really fun. I had fun making the bread and eating the bread too. It was really good. And I really had fun learning how science really affected this. So the sour bread starter was a symbiotic community where lactic acid, bacteria, and yeast feed on the carbohydrates in the flour, and when everything is hydrated with water, it is able to ferment. As the starter keeps being fed with flour and water, it starts to get more bubbly, and starts releasing gas, providing the starter air to rise. So for alcohol fermentation, in this case, it was yeast. It allowed the bread and dough to rise as it was releasing CO2. And for the lactic acid fermentation, a big part of the dough was lactic acid bacteria. This preserved the starter and provided the sour flavor because of the acid. So overall, this experiment was really fun, and we have a lot of leftover starter that we can use for more bread. The end. Thank you.